Welcome back. The time is exactly 8:41 a.m. and some more doom and gloom as far as putting food on the table is concerned regarding the South African economy, and just how we're reeling from a whole host of issues. I'm going to now be talking about South Africa's Brazil poultry ban. But a little later on, I'm also going to be talking about the possibility of a 40% increase in electricity tariffs. So, goodness me, how are we ever going to possibly survive all of this? Online, we have Economist Dawie Roodt, and we understand that other economists have warned that South Africa's decision to ban Brazilian poultry, which we import from the province of Rio Grande do Sul, will end up hitting consumers very, very hard on the pocket. A very good morning to you, Dawie Roodt. Welcome to the program. Nice talking to you after a very, very long break.
Good morning to you. Thank you.
So, where do we stand with this issue regarding the poultry ban? Undoubtedly, it's going to hit us very, very hard on the pocket.
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to say that I'm not a vet, so I don't know how important Newcastle disease is, and I don't know what the impact of that is potentially can be on the industry. So the comments that I'm going to make are just purely as from an economic point of view. So the first comment that I want to make as an economist is that whenever there's a ban on trade, whenever somebody says, listen, you can't import or export because of some sort of illness, then as an economist, I always ask the question, is that really necessary? Because quite often what happens is that countries, they try to find some excuse somewhere to ban trade between them, while the actual reason is that they want to protect that specific industry. So I'm not
Ah,
saying that is the case here. I'm not saying that is the case now. I just want to say, always ask the question, is this really necessary? Because if you ban trade, then inevitably you're going to affect prices. And if you affect prices, of course, that will have an impact on everybody. In the case of chicken, that is very important to South Africa. Because especially for lower income category people, they are very dependent for a source of protein on chicken, and that's very important to low income people. And if there's a ban on chicken, then of course chicken prices are likely to go up. And if chicken prices go up, of course, it will impact on the pockets of poor people, on inflation, and on all sort of things eventually. So again, as an economist, I don't know how important and how serious this is, the Newcastle illness that they've detected in the chicken in Brazil. But I can tell you that I'm always skeptical about trade, the restrictions, and in this case, certainly, it will lead to an increase in the prices of chicken and, of course, the impact on poor people's pockets.
and obviously, you're making a very valid point there. In a lot of instances, sometimes overseas products are banned simply because they want to revive the local economy around that particular product. And having said that, another economist has kind of expressed similar sentiments to what you have just expressed now. And he's gone on to say that South Africa stopping to import poultry from Brazil could create a shortage of poultry in the country in the short term and cause prices of poultry to increase. However, much depends on the extent to which domestic production can increase to take over from the Brazilian product. And there's no question that Brazilian products are coming into the country very cheaply. And that's the operative word, very cheaply. And this is helping to subdue the price of poultry. Exactly what you said, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly that. And in the case of poultry, that is an industry that has been, it's quite a controversial industry because this is not the first time that there was bans on the importation of poultry from other countries. And I know, talking to the poultry producers in South Africa, quite often when I say there should not be any import restrictions, they get quite upset about that because they always tell me that if there's a ban or if there's not a ban on importation of poultry, then it will undermine the local industry. But in the end, it is not about the industry. It is not about any industry for that matter. It is about the end consumer. And in this instance, the end consumer is, in fact, usually, not always, usually quite poor people, and that, as we all know, the South African economy is going through a very difficult time. So my answer to the poultry producers, I understand that you want to make money as well, you want to stay in business, but in the end, it is not about any industry. In the end, it's always about the consumer. And a ban like this is going to lead to quite hardship, especially for poorer families.
Okay, let me flip that response, try to flip it on its head. Can local producers not argue that they are creating jobs? And I know exactly what you're going to say, because how many jobs can they create? So if we have local producers in the poultry industry, they may argue that it's stifling employment in our industry, and if you continue importing from abroad, we are losing jobs in South Africa. How do you respond to that?
So that what local producers are going to say, and again, it doesn't matter what the industry is, and they say this all the time. They say, if you don't protect us and you let foreign countries, for example, they use the word dump their very cheap products in South Africa, then you will undermine the current or the local industry. And once they've destroyed the local industry, then the foreign guys will start increasing prices, and now we can't compete with them because the local industry has been destroyed. That is usually the argument. And some other arguments, like they are creating jobs, they are paying taxes, they're contributing to the economy. All those arguments are totally valid. But again, if that is the approach that we're going to follow, then we have to limit importation of just about anything that is produced in South Africa. That will lead to an increase of prices, that will lead to higher inflation. And we all know inflation and interest rates and all that is bad for the economy. So yes, in some instances, it will have a negative impact on the economy. And in some instances, it will lead to a loss in jobs, as an example. But the best answer always is to rather leave the trade free and let the economy, let the free market determine what should be produced at what prices. Ma'am, I'm really sorry to ask you this, but I am in a difficult situation and I need to go. I'm very sorry.
Fine. I'm not going to delay you any longer. Thank you indeed. I think you've given us a very broad overview of what we needed to hear. So thank you. Go well. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was Dawie Roodt. He's an economist, and he was talking to us about the issue around Brazil having voluntarily halted poultry exports to some countries following the detection of the outbreak called Newcastle disease. They went on to report that over 7,000 birds have died on a chicken farm in the region, in a particular poultry growing region in Brazil. And of course, economists are saying that this is going to hike up the prices of poultry in South Africa if we stop importing from Brazil. What you also heard Dawie Roodt saying, that banning a trade is not very productive from an economic growth point of view. And unfortunately, it's becoming a global trend where we are seeing pushback against globalization. Countries often believe that their domestic production will benefit if they make it more difficult for cheap imports to come in from overseas. Another economist, and that of course is I think he is Azar Jamin, who has, and I quote, he's gone to say, without a doubt, there would be an enormous boon to African economies. He's referring to Africa as a whole, not necessarily South Africa. What he's saying is it would be an enormous boon to African economies if they started increasing trade amongst themselves. So intra-African trade. At the moment, the intra-African trade amounts to less than 15% of all of that trade. And he's suggesting that we, South Africa and the rest of South Africa, start thinking about trading on our continent with each other to boost our economies, to create much needed employment, and to keep the money in Africa as a whole. So that's the story. Be warned that we might see the increase of poultry prices within the next couple of months. That is, if South Africa doesn't, you know, does in fact stop importing poultry from Brazil. So just be warned. It is exactly 8:51 a.m. This is News and Views on Salam Media. And we do hope you're going to become a part of the conversation. Let me give you a quick rundown as to what is coming up in the second hour of the program. We will be talking to Professor Helen Rees. She's the board chair of the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority. We're going to be looking at the mpox outbreak, raising concerns in South Africa. Also, we'll be joined by Boikanyo Moloto, political systems researcher at an organization called My Vote Counts. And we're going to be looking at the development of an alternative electoral system. So all of that and more coming up on the show. Please do keep us company right here on Salam Media.